So this video is going to be talking about how you can catch any shiny Pokemon, or any Pokemon that is shiny rather, in less than, let's say, 10 tips on how you can make sure you guarantee to get that shiny. So that way, like, you know, when you encounter the shiny, how to make sure that, you know, you don't kill it by accident, or, you know, make sure that you catch the Pokemon. So most importantly, when you catch a shiny, not a legendary, a shiny, that'd be a whole different story. But what you want to do is you want to make sure you're prepared for it. Okay, so figure out ahead of time what Pokemon you're going for. Okay, so if, for example, let's say you want to catch a shiny Ditto, because that's just what happened to me. I got a 4 perfect IB shiny Ditto, and it was actually complete luck that I got it. I mean, I was SOS chaining them. I think it was the 32nd Ditto that was summoned, and Ditto just came out of the blue. But this is just a tip for you, though. This isn't part of the top 10 tips that I would give, but if you're going to try to catch a shiny Ditto, some people don't know this, but apparently if you have Ditto transform into the Pokemon that it does, that Pokemon's catch rate is also copied as well. So, like, for example, let's just say you have like a Pokemon that has like a high guarantee chance. I think Nosepass, the one that's from Gen 3, the one that not Protobass, but like whatever, you know, the one that has like a giant mustache, giant nose, and it levitates. That one was from Gen 4, I believe. And if you can just find one of those Pokemon, and you know, you could catch it like guaranteed, like Nosepass. So if you have Ditto, like, okay, so let's say you find a shiny Ditto, alright, and then have Ditto copy transform into like Nosepass, for example, then just throw a ball at it. You already caught it. So that's the thing that people are scared of when they run into shiny Pokemon is, you know, because here's the thing, you know, when you run into Dittos, like, assuming that you're trying to catch a shiny one, especially if it's rare, sort of, you know, you don't want to kill it, but at the same time, though, you don't want it to kill itself. So you don't want it to copy like anything like a legendary that has like a really low chance, unless you have a Master Ball or something. And that's another good tip. Always save your Master Balls for like maybe a shiny, because, you know, try to catch it with other balls first, but if it comes down and it starts struggling itself to death, just use the ball and get it over with. But here's another tip that I think that'd be really interesting. If you are to consider catching a shiny Pokemon, such as, you know, maybe Ditto, or, you know, Struggle is a Pokemon move that ever since the original, I mean, I'm not sure if it was in Gen 3 they changed it, or whenever they did, but Struggle was changed to, like, it hits anybody. So it never misses, unless, of course, you lower the accuracy of the Pokemon themselves. I haven't tested that in Gen 7 yet. But apparently it's like this. If a Pokemon starts struggling itself, you can lower the Pokemon's evasiveness and raise your, like, use double team. So here's what I would recommend doing. So down 6 levels the Pokemon's accuracy, the Pokemon that you're trying to catch, up your evasion by 6 levels. Get a Pokemon that's on level 100. Essentially what I'm trying to say is this. Okay, if you're not accidentally running away from the battle, but at the same time, though, you know, you're just fighting the Pokemon, well, if for whatever reason you're trying to catch a shiny Pokemon, especially like a legendary. Okay, we'll go back to the legendaries, especially if you're trying to catch a shiny legendary. You know, some of these Pokemon can be really, really hard to catch, but if it struggled itself to death, that would really suck. So what I would recommend doing is, depending on what Pokemon you're trying to catch, check its catch rate. Okay, so once you know what its catch rate is, again, it's like 255, it's something out of 255, but again, if you have like a really, really strong Pokemon, you know, you can essentially raise its defenses to the point where, you know, maybe it only does a few damage every time it hits with Struggle, if it does hit. So you can draw this out for as long as possible so that Pokemon's eventually caught. So my point is this. If you think about it, you know, as long as the Pokemon doesn't kill itself, and as long as you don't kill it, and as long as you don't run away and the battle still exists, the game will still continue to fight, because that's how it's programmed. So, you know, once you encounter that shiny Pokemon, as long as you don't run away, and as long as that Pokemon doesn't run away, and as long as, you know, it doesn't die, and as long as the battle still keeps going on, you have a chance to catch that Pokemon. So, if you think about it, it's essentially just, different combinations of how to draw the battle out for as long as possible, but at the same time trying to catch it as soon as possible so it doesn't kill itself, if that is the case. So, let's say, what I would recommend doing, I'm not sure if Pokemon games, like, what counts as using, like, a PowerPoint move. Like, if you, like, well, I don't know, like, is it kind of like what they do in Fire Emblem? Like, for example, like the durability of, like, weapons. Like, if someone casts a spell and they miss, it still counts as a use. But if it's, like, for example, if you use, like, a physical attack, like a sword, for example, like, take iron swords. Like, you can use them, like, 46 times before it breaks. But if you miss with it, you can technically still, it has to hit 46 times before it breaks. That iron sword will break, unless you fix it. But what I'm trying to say, though, is unless, of course, the durability runs out without actually hitting them, then it would be like, that iron sword still exists. So it'd be like with the Pokemon's power points. Is it like, because I haven't paid attention, like if a Pokemon misses an attack, does it still count as a power point that they use that move? So like if they can use like a Pokemon move like 40 times, even if they hit or miss, they can still do that. Because if that's the case, then I guess it really wouldn't matter when you throw up your evasiveness as well as your... But I would recommend, like, this is what I recommend. Before you start a Pokemon battle, okay, you can false swipe it, sure, but don't kill it yet. Like, don't, if it does come down to possibly struggling itself, maybe keep it at, like, half of health, just in case, so you can increase the chance of getting it. But if it does come down to struggling itself, there's still some health that it can go through before it dies, and, But again, like I said, keep a Master Ball just in case. You never know when you might need one of those. If you can somehow get your hands on one. I've gotten a few off the GTS and I still have mine, and I've actually gotten a few legendaries. Now I didn't use them, but I've actually had a few friends that actually ran into a couple shinies that, they were kind enough to give them to me, but with a Master Ball. So I don't know if it was hacked, but like the guy who originally had it, they had like a level 100. I still have this. I use them as a wall, though. I have Necrozma, a level 100, and it's got like 350 HP, I think. And so what I like to do is, because it's on level 100, its stats are really high for a legendary. So what I like to do is, like, for example, like let's say you run into a shiny Pokemon, and it starts not using Struggle, but the Pokemon can't kill you if it's not able to keep doing so much damage. But not just Ditto, but like any Pokemon. So like think of it like this. Okay, so if you're gonna catch a shiny Pokemon, maybe try to get the Pokemon as low as possible. Try lowering its stats as much as possible so it can't do much damage. So if it's only doing like a few hits for damage, then it will only do 1/4 of that. So like round it up to the nearest whole number. So like for example, if Ditto can only do like 3 damage to you, then it might only do 1 damage to itself. So how much health it has, I'm not sure if Ditto really has too much health. But the thing is, though, like, if you think about it, some Pokemon, you can catch them on full health. Use an Ultra Ball, boom, done. Or Timer Balls if you're fast. But, again, it depends on what you decide to do. But what I would do is, with the whole Struggle thing, Struggle doesn't miss. So, if a Pokemon's going to keep using Struggle and there's a chance that it doesn't miss, well, then the next best thing that I would do is make sure that, try to reduce the amount of damage that it does so it drags it out for as much as possible. Because, again, if the Pokemon survives and it's got 1 turn, but make sure, though, that Pokemon does not call for help because or make sure you use a move that, can kill that Pokemon, but don't kill the shiny, though. Because, again, avoid using moves that hit 2 targets at once, or more, if it's possible. I've only seen 2 Pokemon in 1 battle at the same time. I haven't seen triple battles yet. That's me personally. But I don't know if they still do that in Pokemon Gen 7. But, or going back to Gen 6, where you can run into like 5 Pokemon at once, like hordes of Pokemon. I haven't seen that. I've only seen 2 Pokemon. But anyways, but what I would do is again figure out what a Pokemon that you're trying to fight, and essentially just like use higher levels too, because again, the less time that you have to, or you know what, I got a good idea. I gotta know. I just thought about this. If you try to catch a Pokemon that keeps struggling itself, use a Pokemon that can give it leftovers. Now, this might at the same time make it a little bit harder to catch the Pokemon because it might be weakening in itself, but if it keeps recovering its HP and you can keep giving it more health to the point where, like, okay, you know, maybe it's gonna, like, okay, let's say you paralyze the Pokemon, okay, so it doesn't keep, and then, what is it, like a 25% chance that Pokemon won't be able to move on that turn? Well, if you give it leftovers, like, I mean, okay, you know, if you can get your hands on leftovers, because, well, actually, technically, it wouldn't really matter, because if you catch the shiny and it has the leftovers, then you get it back anyways. But I don't know where you get leftovers. I think it's at Battle Tree. But anyways, if you play the games long enough, okay, think of it like this: if you prevent a Pokemon from struggling itself, and you have like Switcheroo or Trick where you can switch the items and give it that, well, then, you know, if it comes down to it struggling itself, as long as it doesn't kill itself, then you'll be good. But if you can just lower its health, but at the same time in a way that it's not going to kill itself, then the battle will keep going. But at the same time, though, you'll have a more realistic chance of catching this Pokemon. Sure, it might take a while, but once you paralyze it, I think if you give it paralysis, which is paralyzation, and put it to sleep are the same. I always thought freezing it actually did something too, but not as much though. So paralyzing it is probably more ideal. You teach a Pokemon Thunder Wave, and boom, there you go. But the way I look at it though, you know, the easiest way to catch a Pokemon, the easiest true way to catch a Pokemon is to make sure the battle goes on as long as possible. Eliminate the death policy. Eliminate the death factor. If the Pokemon can't kill itself, then the hardest part is just encountering it. Once you encounter it, as long as everything goes according to plan, you'll catch it, and you'll never have to worry about this Pokemon killing itself ever again, struggling itself. You know, all you'd have to do is just bring a bunch of healing moves and, you know, maybe PP Restore. But again, if you get a Pokemon that knows Pickup, you can get essentially so many elixirs and whatnot. I just forget exactly what level those are. Max elixirs are good too. But if for whatever reason it drags out for like 200 turns, I mean that's very rare. But like, you know, but my point is, you know, Pokemon battles usually aren't that long if you think about it. So they can be over with within seconds. Well, I mean, aside from the SOS chaining, but I mean, like, once you start chucking balls at the shiny, you know, just make sure it doesn't call for help so much. Other than that, just kill the one that keeps calling in. But, you know, but once you catch the Pokemon, though, you know, hey, you got yourself a shiny. The only thing that's left after that is to, I mean, and it probably has its hidden ability. I'm not sure if all Pokemon have hidden abilities, including legendaries, but I'll have to look into that. That actually sounds very interesting. But, oh, geez, like, Dittos, well, think of it like this. When you start encountering, not just Dittos, but I mean, like, Ditto's hidden ability is Imposter. It'll immediately transform, and you'll know when you're fighting a Ditto that does this, because it'll immediately transform as soon as it shows up. Other than that, you'll have a Limber Ditto, which means it can't be paralyzed, so it can't transform. But the thing that was really interesting for me when I was catching that shiny Ditto was it was a Limber Ditto, and I didn't paralysis it. I was just thinking, I'm like, oh, this is my first shiny I've seen in Sun and Moon legitly, so I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, like, oh man, what do I do? Like, I want to catch that Ditto, but I don't want to false swipe it and kill it if it does happen to struggle itself, because at the time I wasn't using any leftovers I couldn't switch it with that, and the one that I gave Lapa Berry to, I killed that. I'll upload the video later if you're interested in seeing it, but what I would recommend doing, though, is just find a way to draw. The idea is this: to draw the battles out for as long as possible, and to make sure that the Pokemon can't kill itself. So, again, you want to be able to just have the upper advantage. If you're fighting a legendary Pokemon, what I would recommend doing is this. Don't keep its HP so high, but at the same time, though, switch it with leftovers. I mean, again, I would highly recommend, if you're going to start shiny hunting, don't make it harder for yourself. if you happen to run into a legendary Pokemon that can be a pain in the ass to catch, because some of them are not easy to catch, let alone they're like really hard to beat. So the idea here is to just have high-level Pokemon and, maybe use, type advantages. So if you have a Pokemon that can just, or better yet, if you want, you can get a bunch of Shuppets, one Pokemon that knows Grudge, so like, just keep killing it, reviving it, drain all its power points as soon as possible to the point where it's using nothing but struggle, and then what I would also recommend doing is just, give it, switcheroo it to the point where it doesn't, you're going to need a fast Pokemon to do this, by the way. As long as you can switch that Pokemon's leftovers with, like, the item that it's holding nothing, and then, there you go, then ditto, or not ditto, but then, then throw out, like, a defensive wall Pokemon where it only does, like, a few damage or 20 and it'll keep healing itself. But I mean, like, but what I'm trying to say, though, is, as long as you have a Pokemon that, you don't have to keep healing it and it doesn't have to die, again, still falls under healing, but, and as long as the Pokemon doesn't heal itself, but at the same time, though, you kind of have control over its HP, as long as, especially legendary Pokemon, as long as they can't kill themselves, and as long as you can't kill it, and as long as they're not going to run away and the battle still can keep going on, you have a better chance of, you can deal with even the lowest catch rates in the entire series, and you can catch that shiny Pokemon, and you'll be happy knowing that, you actually had more options than you actually knew about. So, not just chaining Pokemon, but I mean, like, catching a Pokemon like a shiny. I realized that the easiest way to catch these Pokemon is just to you really just gotta kind of take a look at the whole thing, kind of like take a look at their stats, or, kind of like their stat growths on the internet, because people leak this stuff all the time, like every Pokemon's got like their own individual behaviors, and they also have like different identical that can give it such a huge advantage. So, what I'm trying to say is this, figure out what Pokemon are best against what other ones, and if you're trying to catch a shiny, find a way to just gain the upper hand. Don't have to heal, but if you have to, you got all the items you need, have a bunch of balls, and if it ever comes down to a Master Ball, hey, at least with the Master Ball, hey, if you have one of those, and you're going to use it on a shiny, especially a legendary one, there you go. You've already caught it, and really the only thing that's left now is just to make sure it has the right nature, that'd be another thing. Like, for example, you could bring the Pokemon Alakazam or Gardevoir, Abra or Kadabra, Ralts, or Kirilla? How do you pronounce it? Korea? No, not Korea. It's Kirlia. I think it's Laria or something like that? Korea? Yeah. Korea? Lira? So, well, anyways, I'll figure it out. You know what I mean, though. Or, I wonder, was it Galblade too can learn that too? No, I don't think Galblade can learn. There's a ability that they can get. It starts with an S. It's like it's really long. It's like Signer, like Noid or something like that. So, something really long. And I want to say, like, one of the hidden abilities ever since Gen 3 was that it allowed you, like, if you, like, for example, if, like, you had Gardevoir, like, in the first party, and, like, it was your first Pokemon you're leading with, when you run into this Pokemon, there's a 50% chance increase that it will have the nature as that Pokemon does. So, like, I don't know if it just has to be in your party, or if they have it, or how they raise the percentage, but I still think that's still how they do it. But if that, I haven't tested it yet, but if that is the case, like I was saying, like, you have, like, a modest nature Gardevoir, which would be a really good Pokemon in this case to go with, you could definitely guarantee yourself that now you can get, like, modest nature Pokemon very easily. So if, let's say you do find that shiny Pokemon, and then you find a perfect IVs. So now you have perfect IVs, shiny, and right nature, and now all you gotta do is just EV train it. Not like EV evolutions, but EV like effort values. And if you think about that, you'd be surprised at how many different combinations of Pokemon you can do. Hell, even Battle Tree would be a lot easier if you just had the right team. But, just depends, though, you know what I mean? Just goes to show you that, as far as Pokemon games go, when you really know what you're doing, the games really aren't that difficult. Even though some people say they're not really that difficult, but, but if there ever was a time when you were faced with something like that, how many different ways there are to prepare for it and how to really make it easier. So again, comment, rate, subscribe, favorite, share this video. If you like tutorials like this, subscribe to this channel especially, because I will be making videos like this and teaching you, how you can do these things and how to catch like a shiny ditto and all these other cool things that you'd be very surprised that you didn't even know existed probably.